Welcome to the second College Career Success podcast. Today we have a topic that is very common for anybody looking to go to school, and that is, how do I choose a college major? So how's it going today, Lynn?
Good. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that we're covering this topic because I think it is a underutilized decision in what people are doing. So they don't consider these things, and I think it's to their detriment later on down in their career. So I'm glad that we're going over this.
All right. I realized that I forgot to introduce you and failed to introduce myself, so I'm Ben Tencher, and
I'm Lynn Walter.
all right. And we are College Career Success, so thank you for joining us today. But let's jump right in. A college major is obviously important. You most typically have to choose a college major, so you can't really get around it if you're going to college. And many students find this to be very difficult. And that's understandable because I think most students are somewhat aware that your major will become your future career later in life and your job, that where you spend 40 or more hours a week at that place. So hopefully you enjoy it. On the other hand, I don't know that students realize that very fact all the while and how important it is. I think some students understand that it will be a career, but at the same time, they don't fully understand that that will be their career for 30, 40 years, every single day. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that people always understand that being in a free society, we can always make decisions down the road where we can change. But I think that students don't understand is it does take more time and more effort to change once you go down a path, say, into nursing, and then you want to get into business. That's a huge change.
Right,
And
right.
so there are course corrections, and then there are major course corrections. And so getting at least the trajectory correct at the beginning is a huge time saver down the road, and it just saves you a lot of money too.
For sure. And I mean, in today's market or industries, it is a little bit easier to change than it was, maybe 10, 20 years ago. So you can sort of jump between careers and industries and job title a little bit better. So you do have some more flexibility, but as Lynn's saying, you can't really jump to the other side of the spectrum. And so anyway, that's what we want to talk about today, is how can you uh, set yourself up for careers that will be a success and fulfilling to you personally. Um, so let's jump into the first tip that we have here. The first one that we talk about is engagement. And engagement simply is, how well are you connected to the job? Are you excited about going to the job? Does that job fit you? And again, we'll probably be using the terms job and career more during this discussion than your major. And that's simply because your major will become your career. So we'll be talking a lot about your career, but this is how to select your major, if that makes any sense. So what do you have for engagement, Lynn?
Well, I think the biggest thing for engagement is this is potentially something that you will do for the next 20, 30, 40 years. If you have no interest in this career or this major, don't save yourself the trouble now and find something that you actually will enjoy. It doesn't have to be the highest priced um, career. It doesn't have to be the lowest priced career, meaning in job earning. But if you enjoy it, that is something that you will get up in the morning and want to go do. You'll want to learn about it. You'll want to study more about it, and just being engaged in the idea of what you're going to be doing is huge down the road, especially for employers, because if they have to somehow motivate you to do your job, that's just tons of effort that they don't want to go through versus you enjoying what you do. And so I think when you look for a college major that will lead to a career, if you don't know, that's fine, but do the work now of finding things that you enjoy that have jobs related to it. Not just a hobby, because that's not always going to be turning into a career, but finding work that you actually enjoy is huge to picking a major. So I would say
Yeah,
that would be the one big thing is that engagement of being in tune with what you're going to do.
for sure. And I think, I mean, beyond just your personal engagement in your career, if you are engaged, if you are enjoying that job and you are going to work every day and getting fulfillment out of your job, not only is that going to do good things for you and your job, but that also does good things for your family or your future family, your friends, your communities, whatever that looks like. So you're not only bettering yourself and doing what better in your job, but it's a lot better for our communities and our world, for the people that you meet and that you're close with. Family and friends. And you may not be thinking about that right now as a high school student looking to go to college. You may just be looking at how can I go to college and have fun? Who's going to be my roommate? And that's fair. I get it. But understand that your future is coming out of what you're going to do in college. So
Exactly.
it's kind of a way to maybe start thinking about that a little bit, if you can. And so anyway, that's kind of what I have for engagement.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point to you don't have to decide right now, but be thinking about it so that you can save some time in that discovering process later.
Definitely. All right, the next subject we're going to talk about here, as far as your major, choosing a major, is looking for a future career with your major, and this will be earning potential. And Lynn alluded to this a little bit, but that earning potential is simply, can you make money? Can you make enough money to live off of and meet your goals, your personal financial goals? And so it's very important, just from a practical standpoint. You have to be able to live and support your family if you have one, or what have you. So, and I know that a lot of students do think about this one, but maybe they think about it not necessarily in the correct way. I think a lot of students just say, I want the job that gives me the most money possible. Okay, and fair enough. But again, leaning back to what we talked about earlier and about being engaged in your career, okay, maybe you think a lawyer or a doctor or whatever stereotypical high-paying job is, does that fit you? I mean, yeah, maybe you make all the money in the world, but you're miserable. I mean, does that do you any good? And I think most people know that deep down, but ultimately they still want to make a lot of money. But when we're talking about earning potential, it can go the opposite spectrum too. It can go towards maybe you're in a major that will lead you to a career that you really enjoy, that context of that career and the work there, but there's no money to be made, and it just simply doesn't make sense. I mean, you have to live, so whether you're going to have a side job to pay for your bills and to do this thing, then you have two jobs. So it's something that you have to think about in that case.
Absolutely. And I think that's the one thing that, as a student preparing for a career, you kind of have to find that happy medium between maybe the thing that I really, really enjoy is basketball or wakeboarding or skateboarding or anything like that. What are the chances of you actually getting a pro career in one of those? Very slim. But then there's the other thing of getting a job that actually pays really well that you don't enjoy. And so those are on accesses that you have to find that happy medium between things that you enjoy that pay money and also the things that you're good at and there's careers with them. And so that's the I think the discussion that we're trying to have is just be aware of that dynamic between what you enjoy and engage with your work with the potential that you have to live and earn a living to pay those bills, to be self-sustainable. And there are certain things that are easily designated as jobs, and then there's things that are there's lots of majors that just have maybe more as a hobby. I look at I was having a conversation with my mom last week that she plays the steel drum, and she plays at a college where they have a steel drum band, and so these are all music majors, but a lot of them don't really want to be band directors, but they're in a music major, and so almost immediately as soon as they graduate from college, they're going to have to find a job in a career that they didn't go to school for.
Right.
So they're going to have those soft skills, whether it's sales or whether it's customer service or anything like that, that are in demand, but none of your college education prepared you for that specific job.
Right.
And so I look at those and go, yeah, you did exactly what you wanted to do because you love and you're passionate about music. But I don't know that that prepared you better than other students that are graduating for the career that you're going to have. And so I look at some of those decisions and go, maybe you could have had music as a hobby, or you could have taken it as an elective.
Right.
But
or a
why
minor.
choose that as your entire major, and you're not even planning on using it for your career?
Right.
I see that as a little discrepancy between the money spent versus the potential gain from that training. So that's just one instance that I go, I don't know if somebody spoke into that beforehand, or you go, I just really want to pursue music just for the passion of music. So that's something that we see being later in our careers that go, that might be something to hedge against when you're choosing a major too. So.
Sure, and I mean, just to be clear, it's not that we're saying you can't be a music major and you shouldn't be a music major. That's certainly not what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we are trying to say is that if you don't see yourself as a professional musician in whatever form that looks like, then you need to be setting yourself up for a career that will bring in the bills home,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pay the bills later on in life. So you need to be learning other skills, like, as you mentioned, like sales or customer service or what have you. I mean, used to be many years ago or some years ago that a college degree was a college degree, and that kind of got you a good job. But that's certainly not the case anymore. It is not the case at all. And so I think the point that we're making is that consider what your future career will be and how you're going to bring the bills home. If you're not looking to be a professional artist or a professional musician or some of these other majors that kind of have a side of saying that it's hard to make money in that down the road, then be considerate of that. And I think one other thing to be considerate of when choosing a major up front in high school is to be careful about trends or and we're talking about we're talking about earning potential of a career. So be careful to be looking at the trends of earning potential of a certain career or major, because you're not going to be earning those dollars when you start college. You're going to be earning those dollars 4, 5, 6 years after you make that decision.
Yeah.
So in many cases, there's some jobs or careers or industries that are very trend-based, such as oil and gas can be up and down, and I mean to the extreme.
Yeah.
So you can go in when you go into school and they say you should be a petroleum engineer. They're making a killing right now, right? And then 4 years later, we've had some world event and the oil industry is just at rock bottom and you can't find a job. And anyway, so something to be considerate of is how will that career or that industry change over time and as you graduate? Because you need to be planning for 4 years out or however many years beyond when you're making this decision, which makes it, again, difficult to make. But
yeah, and I think we'll cover this even later with one of our other points, is just the fact that a major doesn't necessarily dictate the specific career that you have. So having a broad range of skills within that major does make you more marketable.
definitely, for sure, definitely. Okay, so that is our second point there, and let's move on to the third one that we have here, and that's time commitment for your future career. Simply, how much time is this career going to require of me when I get a job? And I think it's another thing that many students don't think about or know when they're 18 or 19 or going to college. You've heard that you work 40 hours a week. Okay, well, everybody works 40 hours a week. And that's just simply not true. I mean, most people work more than 40 hours a week, but some people work 45, some people work exactly 40, some people work 60 or 80 hours a week, and it can just, I mean, some people work a lot.
Yeah.
And 80 hours a week is intense, and there are people that do that almost every week.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
Well, and I think that there are the people that absolutely love and like that's what they want to do. Okay, great, that's for them. But I don't think that most freshmen understand what that actually looks like when they're choosing a major. And so nursing or business or sales or being a doctor. Like, yeah, there's lots of different specialties that you can be as a doctor. But when you're working a 24-hour shift or you're on call or all of those things that happen in those different nuances within a major, that's all things that people need to think about. And so I think that when you are choosing a major, having some realistic expectation of what that job entails will help you determine what is a day-to-day work life look like in this major that I'm choosing and then the career that matches up to. And I think just looking at that in a realistic terms by talking to somebody or even shadowing somebody, you go, oh, now I understand what the commitment is here, whether you have aspirations to have family and kids, whether you expect to travel, where you expect to live, all of those things from commuting to actually getting work done to having a home life outside of work, all of those play into what that major and career can be.
Definitely, I think that's a good point. Just taking the time to try to look into your future and say, what do I want when I graduate? Do I want a family? Do I want friends? I hope you want friends. Do I want family? Do I want kids? Or do I want to be able to travel? Or what do you want to do? Because some jobs require a lot of you.
Yeah.
And so I like the point that you made about talking to people in that field or in a professional that's already doing some of the things that you think you might be interested in. Go see what they're doing. See what it's like. See what a day in the life of is, because that will maybe be one day your life on that day.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about another one. This is again kind of the part of the job, whatever the job is. And again, this is different from job to job. It varies so much depending on what kind of job you are, the company you're working for. So many factors go into it. So it's hard to predict it exactly, but it's something to think about now, because you can kind of look at different industries and jobs and pick them out. And that's flexibility. Now, we talked about time a little bit, so we're not necessarily talking about time flexibility, but we're talking about how you can change or shift your specific role in that job. So maybe you start out as a entry-level sales personnel, and that's where you start. And maybe you like sales, and maybe you stay there, and that's fine. Or maybe you decide sales has been okay, but I want to try something different. So now you're going to shift over to project management. Okay, so you're shifting into project management, and then you say project management has been fun, but I'm ready to move on. You're going to move to personnel management as more of a manager type of people. So anyway, this flexibility can be a way that you can reinvent your career almost, or just try some new things, because sometimes you can get into a rut and it's kind of the same thing every day. So it allows you to do that. So think about your future potential careers. How much flexibility will they have for you to kind of move around and shift around? You'll often hear the term to move laterally is another kind of way to say flexibility. So do you want that, and is that important to you? And what are do your potential careers or majors have that opportunity?
Yeah, and I think there can be a couple of things to think about when you approach this aspect of your decision. There is the adage like flexibility where you can be multiple things in multiple careers. Let's take engineering. It takes some math, some attention to detail, some problem solving, all of those skills. But if you dive into the specificity of, like you said before, petroleum engineering, and then that market crashes for 3 to 5, 10 years, and you go, okay, there's not really a market here. Can I take that engineering skill set and move it into manufacturing or something else that is in demand at that time? And so, one, there's the idea of using the same skills in different markets. The other part is not being so broad that you aren't actually, no one really knows what you do.
Right.
And you're like, I have lots of skills.
Yeah.
And then you can't really market yourself because you do a lot, you dabble in a lot of things.
Right.
So understand that when we say flexibility, we're really looking at the skills that you have that are marketable.
Right.
And I think that will allow you to, I think part of that flexibility is also learning how to learn, because the job that you maybe go for right now is one of those things that trends out, and then you go, okay, I'm in marketing and we're into print advertising and billboards, and all of a sudden, okay, there's social media, and we've seen that change over the last 10 years from just types of advertising.
Right.
And the trends will continue to change. And so even though you have marketing and you have the skills in marketing, you have to continue to learn to be valuable to your company and to just the workforce in general as those trends change as well.
Right. Definitely. All right, our last one that we have for you today as far as choosing a major, I think we've covered it pretty well already actually, but let's just focus on it really fast. And that is job availability. We talked about earning potential of jobs when you graduate, not necessarily right now, but when you graduate. Same things goes with job availability. And the earning potential and job availability will probably go hand in hand, but not always. But when you graduate, 4, 5, 6, however many years from when you're choosing your major, will there be jobs available? And again, there can be some trends with this, like maybe when you went to school or when you started school, there was a big need for a specific type of engineer or profession. And when you graduated, suddenly everybody else had the same idea that you had, and there's a flood of these available engineers, and you're no longer in demand. I don't want to scare anybody because it's not necessarily that extreme in most cases, So maybe, it's like, oh, we need nurses and teachers. I'm pretty sure we'll always need nurses and teachers. I mean, that kind of seems to be always in need. So don't be fearful in going into your major that there will be no jobs when I graduate, but at the same time, something to consider.
Yeah, and I think I was I read a book called "Is College Really Worth It?" And one of the bits of advice in that was towards the end of your major, you can specialize even more. So there's always the finance degree, and then within finance, there's maybe a specific part of investments or banking or things like that. And I think towards the first part of your college, you're getting your prereqs out of the way, or your general education requirements done. And then you start to pick a major and you hone in on a coursework, whether that's business or psychology or engineering. And so that focus uses leave it even more. And then towards that final 2 semesters, you're going to get even more focused. And I think in that timing is when you look at market trends and go, okay, so I'm going to look at this and say petroleum engineering is not in demand, but aerospace engineering is. Okay, maybe I'll tend towards that engineering as opposed to one or the other, even though you're still all in the engineering degree set.
Right.
And that's one of the things that can really make a difference when you get a high signing bonus because you're in huge demand versus you're just trying to get a job. Uh, and and I think the biggest part about it is that first and second year that you get training and real world experience, it proves everything that you've already learned. But if you have a tough time getting a job and then you go work at Starbucks and you go, I'm just waiting till I can actually get hired, everybody else then is kind of like playing leapfrog when they get out of that career or out of that major and graduate because you just not for any fault of your own sat idle, not being able to put those career tools to use. And that was the advice that that book was giving was look at those trends because that first year or two can make a huge difference for you down the road because now most employers see that okay you earned this much, I'm going to have to pay you more than that to either hire you away or to entice you to come to work for us, whereas if you're just looking to scrape the bottom of the barrel from hourly jobs to get into a career, they have leverage based on your experience. And so seeing those trends that last year of your those 2 semesters can be a real catapulting trajectory for your career by seeing those different trends in what's in demand in the market.
For sure. And I think you can do that even as you go to junior. I mean, you were kind of talking about going from your core classes into your more major classes and picking a path there. And I think you can continue to hone that path even when you're a senior, even when you're in your last semesters as a senior. You can be looking through things like internships and research. You can look at things that are up and coming in the industry. And so maybe you are one in a sea of scientists or whatever that are graduating. Maybe there are a bunch of people graduating with your degree. Yes, they have the same degree, but do they have the same skills that you have, the same experience that you have? Maybe you had an internship in a specific small sect of that science or that method of business, and that's exactly what companies will be looking for. So it's maybe a little bit of a rabbit trail that we've gone down, but I think it's all a part of job availability. How can you market yourself in a way that a company will want to hire you as far as skills and experiences?
Yeah, and I even see the trajectory that you've gone through and say that's spot on between the things that you've done for a major, but then also the experiences you've had, and you can speak to it more. Just the idea that employers have looked at your resume and seen, oh, you have certain experiences with your internships, but you have this degree. You package those together, and now that looks really robust
Right.
because you're diversified in all the things that you can do.
Right. And that speaks to it, something that we'll talk about a lot as we do these podcasts is internships
Yeah.
and experiences and working while you're in college. I mean, it goes so much further than your degree. Everybody has a degree these days.
Yep.
And you need more than that. And
Yeah.
you need those specific experiences.
Because I think even as an employer myself, I'm looking at resumes and I go, okay, so everybody has this degree. What have you actually done?
Right.
And because I know that certain degrees, yeah, you had to go to class and you had to do this project and you had to get it done. But now we're real world and we have scarce resources, and we have time constraints. And so you don't just have this be able to get a project done in a bubble. Like you have to get it done with all of these other things happening around you. Can you get those things done?
Right.
And by having internships and real world experience speaks volume that I've been able to do this aspect and I got it done, and here's the ramifications of it. Now an employer looks at that and go, oh, that's actually tested knowledge that's been where the rubber meets the road.
Right. For sure. That's sage advice there from Lynn, and that's free of charge today from College Career Success. And anyway, thank you for joining today for our second podcast, and stay tuned for our third podcast coming up soon. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play, Stitcher, and Podbean. And please connect with us if you have a question or comment or want to hear about a particular topic. We'd be happy to speak to that and talk about it. And we'd be happy to hear from you. So thank you again, and have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.